We talked about the importance of preparing, right? We talked about the importance of preparing. And we said preparation includes determining the goals, the goals, which is part of the problem analysis, right? The areas for trade, the alternatives to the stated goals. What are the alternatives? If I don't get what I really want, is there something that if I get, it could be equivalent to what I really want? Is also knowing past precedents, outcomes, for of negotiation, just knowing your landmark, right? Knowing the person you're negotiating with, and what they've done before, um, which can be a pointer to what they would do, you know. And so that's part of preparation, right? You study the person you're negotiating with. And and we said that uh, three things that preparation would do for you. It's going to make you comfortable in the room when you're negotiating, right? And those are three things preparation does, right? Just like I'm here, having this time with you, preparing makes me comfortable, to do it, right? I didn't just come here without thinking about what we're going to have together. So I'm comfortable because I've thought about it, and I've prepared my mind and my person to do this, right? So it makes you comfortable. It gives you confidence also. When you prepare, you have confidence, about the thing that you're doing. Also, when you prepare, you're convincible because of the way you're delivering what you're sharing. People tend to think you know what you're talking about, which is not always necessarily true, but your body disposition, your courage, your posture, affects the way people listen to you. And those are affected by whether you prepare or you didn't prepare. Right. So 80% of negotiation is preparation. 20% is the actual negotiation itself. When you prepare, then the job is 80% done. Right, which I cited Abraham Lincoln's quote, where he says that if he's given a job to cut down a tree, he's going to spend probably 80% of the time sharpening the axe, not just going to be working, he's going to get himself ready for the cut, spend time making sure that the tool that he has will be effective. Then the remaining 20% he does uses the cut, so it's not beating about the bush. Is focused on what he needs to do, and that guarantees success. When we prepare for what we want to do before we go about it. And I did quote also a quote that is related to the Desert Fox. The German field marshal from the Second World War, who's also a veteran of the First World War, and he said that much sweat in planning saves blood in the field. So if you spend the time to plan well, then you reduce the amount of loss you would have in the field because you'll have taken care of a couple of things, uh, worked out, got the best value, from that which you're trying to do. And I did mention, in the industry where I work, and it's true in every industry, when you plan, it's called front-end loading. You get the highest value, by planning ahead before you go about the venture. You're able to visualize and solve problems on paper, before you actually go out there and execute. Another way to it is what we call piloting the project. You have a big project you want to do, you do it in small chunks, first of all, to learn. Things that you can't learn in the classroom, you to learn real life scenario experience, which you then replicate in the macro of that system, that project or that endeavor. But key word is the fact that you to prepare, you get the maximum value when you prepare. And when same thing applies to negotiation, if you plan yourself, then it's easier to execute. Same thing a lawyer does in the law court. right? He does his homework, and that's why he knows the questions to ask, to be able to win the case, right? Which is what negotiation really is about. We're trying to get our goals at the end of the day, right? So that's what all we did last time we're here. So the third one in terms of effective negotiation skills is the importance to listen. It's important to listen. And listening here is also in the first two we've said, because when I am analyzing the problem, I'm listening. In a sense, I'm not necessarily listening to individuals, but I'm listening to, what's really going on here. You as it were listening to the elements of life. What's really going on here? Why are we here? Why is the difference? Why do we need to negotiate? What are we trying to get out of there? In that way, you're listening to yourself, right? Then you prepare. In preparing, you're listening to others in a sense because you're still asking questions. What could go wrong? What could go well? What would be the best tool to use, and all of that. You are the one going out there to ask the questions. And number three here in talking about active listening itself, in itself, right? It's now in the negotiation itself. When you're on the negotiation table or you're in a negotiating scenario, don't be too much in a hurry. Don't be too much in a hurry to talk, right? Like we always say, that's the reason why we have two ears and one mouth. Because when you're negotiating, it's not as much as your ability to talk, is your ability to say the right words. And if you don't know the right words, you won't be able to say it, right? It's that place where Sun Tzu would say that there's a need to know not just yourself, the way you know how to talk. You need to know the enemy, or the other side of the negotiation. Not necessarily enemy, but the other side of the negotiation. And Sun Tzu says if you know both sides, you are assured of victory every time. Right. But if you only know yourself, you win some, you lose some. If you only know the other side, you win some, you lose some. But the important, you need to know yourself. That means you know your strengths, your limitations, as much as you know the other side, their strength, their limitations. And one of the ways you know the other side is by listening. Hear from them. Let them tell you what they have, right? By the words they are using, their gesticulations, their emotions, their reactions, all of those are messaging for you and inputs into your negotiation strategy, right? So listen, because the other side is telling you a lot. They're guiding you on how you can have a successful negotiation if you listen, right? So it's important because listening is pretty much getting to know the other person. You already know yourself. You need to know the other person if you're going to have a successful negotiation, right? So it is important if you're going to get a successful negotiation. Remember, we mentioned the first commandment. We had 10 commandments of a con man, you know, and the first commandment of a con man is be a patient listener, right? Be a patient listener. That's the first commandment of a con man. The con man does his work by listening to the other person, because a con man can con a person he or she does not know. So they gather data by listening. They gather data by listening. So the con man listens to be able to win, his engagement, right? In a sense, it's negotiation, but it's negative negotiation because it's not trying to get a mutually beneficial outcome. It's trying to get to an outcome which involves him not giving value but getting value, right? But it's still an engagement nonetheless, So a command is successful by listening, right? But in a normal interaction of life also we need to listen. Right. And we said that negotiation is between us and God also, right? And scripturally, the Bible says that, God will answer us for prayer according to his word. So it's not enough just to come and be making noise before God. You have to listen. God, what are you saying? What are you saying about what I'm saying? What is your mind concerning this? What is it that you're trying to get out of this thing that I'm trying to do? Our desires, our goals, are they aligned or misaligned? Is there a way I need to key into what you want so that it can empower what I want? Right. So you gotta listen. You're there praying, gotta listen what God is saying, so you don't speak off point. That applies to individuals, that applies to the elements of this life also,